Shen Yue walked out in tears. The studio lights were dimming, not because the scene called for it, but because something far more real was unraveling before everyone's eyes. The cast was in the middle of filming what was supposed to be a simple goodbye scene between Dylan Wang and Shen Yue's characters. But what happened instead was a moment no camera could ever truly capture, even though they were rolling. As the director called action, Dylan walked toward Shen Yue with a strange stillness in his posture, eyes locked on her as if every line he had rehearsed vanished from memory. For a brief second, everyone on set felt it. This wasn't acting anymore. Shen Yue stood there, trembling slightly, her hands clenched at her side. The scene began with her line, but before she could say a word, Dylan took a step closer, tilted his head, and said something not in the script. "I never got to say it, but I was never ready to lose you," Dylan whispered, his voice raw. The camera operator's hands started shaking. The boom mic lowered too far before someone grabbed it. "And Shen Yue?" She froze. For a split second, her lips parted, then she closed her eyes, and the tears came without permission. "Cut!" The assistant director started to yell, but the main director held up a hand. "Let it roll," he whispered, watching the monitor as if witnessing something sacred. Shen Yue tried to remain professional. She really did. But Dylan's words weren't part of any dialogue they'd ever rehearsed. Her voice broke when she finally said her line, but her face was unreadable. "Then why did you wait until now?" she asked, almost silently. And then, silence. Everyone held their breath. You could hear the ticking of a wall clock on set. Dylan's jaw clenched, and in that moment, it became painfully obvious to everyone watching that something deeper was bubbling beneath their carefully constructed characters. Shen Yue stepped back, dropped her prop bag, and walked off set. Not stormed. Not ran. Just walked, head slightly tilted down, her eyes glistening. The room stayed still, no one daring to move or speak, until the door closed behind her. The makeup artist gasped softly. One of the junior crew whispered, "Was that part of the scene?" It wasn't. What followed was an eerie kind of confusion. Dylan just stood there, unmoving. It took the director a full minute before yelling, "Cut," but by then, no one was acting anymore. Every person on set had become a silent witness to something heartbreakingly personal. People scrambled to find Shen Yue, but she had disappeared into the far corridors of the building. Rumors began flying instantly. Had they been secretly fighting? Was this about the leaked photo from earlier that week? Or had this been boiling for months? And then someone checked the script binder and realized something terrifying. Dylan had skipped 3 entire scenes to get to that moment. What was he trying to say? Was this an unscripted confession disguised as fiction? And what about Shen Yue's reaction? Was it the final crack in a wall that had been holding back something massive? The studio knew they had captured lightning in a bottle. But the question wasn't whether the footage would go viral. The real question was, what happened when Shen Yue stepped outside that door, and who was waiting for her on the other side? The set was silent, the camera still rolling, but no one moved. Not the crew, not the director, not even Dylan Wang. Shen Yue's footsteps echoed down the hallway as she walked away, her shoulders trembling, her hand clutched over her mouth. And just like that, the emotional wall she had spent weeks building cracked wide open. A few moments earlier, they had been shooting a simple goodbye scene. But Dylan's delivery had changed. It wasn't the line from the script. Instead, with his eyes locked on hers, he said in a low voice, "I wish I had chosen you when I had the chance." Those words weren't part of the script. Not even close. Everyone froze. Shen Yue blinked, as if she hadn't heard him correctly. Then, quietly, she whispered, "It's too late now, isn't it?" Her voice was not acting. It was real. The director didn't yell cut. The crew didn't move. And Dylan stood there, breathing hard, the weight of whatever history they shared thick in the air. But what no one expected was what happened next. Shen Yue slowly reached into her back pocket and pulled out something small, a folded photo, worn at the edges. She held it in her hand for just a moment before letting it fall to the floor at Dylan's feet. He bent down, picked it up, and looked at it. It was a picture of them, smiling, young. Before everything changed. That's when Shen Yue walked away. No dramatic exit. No yelling. Just silence and pain. Outside, she didn't go to her trailer. She went straight past security and into the parking lot. One staff member tried to speak to her, but she raised her hand, tears still streaming down her face. Back inside, Dylan still stood in the exact same spot, staring at the photograph. Someone from wardrobe stepped forward and asked, "Should we cut?" But the director only said one thing: "Keep rolling." Rumors spread fast. Within an hour, the photo was circulating online. No one knew how it leaked, but it was clear that the moment had struck a nerve across the fandom. Fans began piecing together old interviews, behind-the-scenes clips, even previous dramas where their chemistry had gone beyond just acting. People started to question if what they had seen all this time was actually just acting, or something far more personal. Then came the real shocker. A source from the production team anonymously revealed that Dylan had requested one final take with Shen Yue, one that wouldn't be used in the final cut. He wanted to say something just to her. Cameras would roll, but the footage would never air. No one knows what he said during that take. Only Shen Yue. And when she returned 2 days later, her eyes were different. Not cold, not angry, just tired. She walked onto the set, nodded at the director, and stood next to Dylan for their next scene. No words, no smiles, just a quiet understanding. And when filming resumed, something had shifted. Their energy, their silence, the looks between takes. Fans could feel it. The internet was on fire with theories. But none of them came close to the truth. Because the truth, as always, was far messier than the script ever could be. 3 days had passed since that unforgettable moment on set. The production team had resumed work, but everything felt different. The energy was subdued, as if the entire set was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. Or worse, waiting for something to break again. Shen Yue returned, not with fire in her steps, but with calmness, the kind that comes after storms. She didn't speak much. She stayed close to her assistant. Even her smiles, the ones she used to give freely, were smaller now, fleeting. But on the 4th day, something shifted again. The crew had just finished setting up for a rooftop scene, a romantic confrontation between Dylan and Shen Yue's characters. Everyone assumed it would be difficult for them to shoot. The emotions were too raw, the lines too close to the truth. Dylan stood alone on the rooftop set, gazing out at the fake skyline built just for this scene. Shen Yue walked toward him slowly, her footsteps deliberate. They didn't speak. The director called action, and the camera rolled. Dylan turned. His character was supposed to ask her to stay, to forget the past, to start over. But what came out of his mouth wasn't the line in the script. Instead, he said, "I wish I could go back and choose you. Every time." Shen Yue's eyes immediately filled with tears. And instead of responding with a scripted line, she asked quietly, "Do you mean that?" Silence. The entire crew was frozen behind the cameras. The boom mic operator had to fight the tremble in his arms. Even the assistant director was whispering, "Oh my God," under her breath. Dylan stepped closer to her, still in character, but barely. "I meant it the day we met. And I still mean it now." Shen Yue dropped the script she was holding. She turned away from him, just slightly, her hand wiping her cheek as the tears came faster now. But she didn't walk away this time. Not like before. Instead, she said something no one expected. "I waited for you," she whispered, "for too long." Those 7 words, the same 7 Bai Lu once reportedly said on another set, carried across the rooftop like a confession wrapped in pain. And this time, when Dylan moved to reach for her hand, she didn't pull away. The scene ended not with a scripted kiss or dramatic exit, but with silence. Real, human silence. One that said more than any dialogue could. After the director finally called cut, no one spoke for a few moments. Shen Yue walked to the edge of the rooftop, looking out at the fake city lights. Dylan stayed behind her, not pushing, not speaking, just being there. Later that night, a grainy clip leaked online. Someone from the lighting team had secretly recorded part of the scene. It wasn't a full version, just a few seconds of Dylan's line and Shen Yue's teary response. But it was enough. Fans exploded. Hashtags trended globally. Edits flooded social media. "I waited for you for too long" became a viral soundbite. People began piecing together every past moment, every subtle look in past interviews, every behind-the-scenes glance they had once ignored. The internet didn't know what was acting and what was real anymore. But maybe that was the point, because sometimes the realest moments are the ones we never planned to see. And now, the question wasn't about the script. It was about what would happen when the cameras finally stopped rolling.